So, hi everybody. You know, this title of the presentation was submitted a few months ago. So, I wish I could change it. But I'm going to take you through a small journey about our thoughts and about our experience at MClimate with CO2 impact and the impact of the devices themselves and their production. But you can see this slide. It represents a lot of things, a lot of important things that every manufacturer, no matter if it's from Europe or not, they should look at. It shows taxes that you have to pay. It shows certain directives that you have to comply with. And, you know, in 2024, essentially at the beginning of the year, we decided that we should start taking steps into calculating our own footprint as a company. And we do this. We think about reusability of components. We think about we've also done, for example, recycling campaigns for some of our customers. We think about the life cycle assessment, LCA, so said. And I'm going to talk about this in a second, but as I said, I'm going to take you through a journey of how things look right now. But I must warn you that we're pretty early in our journey and we still have a lot to learn. But actually, it all started with the integration of ISO 14001, which I recommend to everybody. It's about tracking your own operational CO2 footprint as a company. And, it unlocked, so to say, a way of thinking in the company. And is the timer going to work, maybe? Yeah. First, about components. First of all, batteries are a huge part of the CO2 footprint. If you do a life cycle assessment, which includes taking a deeper look at what parts are using, where the parts coming from, how are you transporting them, what are the materials used in the parts, etc. If you try to complete an LCA, life cycle assessment of your product, at the end, you're going to figure out that the batteries are a huge part. So I would say for any manufacturer out there wanting to develop devices that have a lower CO2 impact footprint of the devices themselves, you should think of other ways to power those devices. Batteries are already produced in billions, of course, and maybe your device does not make the difference. But if you want to look at the long horizon, I would say batteries are a huge emitter of CO2. Obviously, they have some conflict materials inside there. There's a lot of buzz on the media on how hard it is to recycle them, etc. But on the component selection, I cannot tell you, hey, use polycarbonate and not ABS plastic. The difference right now is not that much. Or it's too complicated to explain because in every country they might recycle ABS well, but not polycarbonate or vice versa. But select your components based on your need. I think when we get too much invested into what is my CO2 footprint of this product, we actually start thinking about problems that are maybe getting us further away from the goal. And the goal here would be, to optimize the process, to save energy, to give more data, etc. But something we've learned doing a preliminary LCA of one of our devices is that the batteries can be, 60, 70, 80% of the actual CO2 footprint of the device itself. And that's kind of tricky because we ship devices with batteries. The reason we ship them with batteries is that we want our sensors to be used with not the IKEA batteries, but with good batteries, right? So they can fulfill the promise of 10 years. But yeah, this is about this point. Then second point of the LCA, life cycle assessment, it's about manufacturing. And it talks about how much energy are you using during manufacturing. Once you have quantified the amount of CO2 and other aspects, again, part of one of the ISOs, then you get to manufacturing. The truth is that as any, it would be crazy if we said, let's optimize everything right now. So we decided that first we should try to analyze everything right now. And then I'm going to get to it at the end, but it's not a quick process. Minimizing your CO2 footprint of your device, I think you should have enough space, mental space, time space to actually spend your efforts on this. But it is easy to monitor how much, let's say, each machine is using, etc. And now maybe some of you saw our new product, the relay and electricity meter. So we're equipping all the manufacturing lines in the factory with this. Another thing that we thought that, okay, it makes sense to do it was to, I'm sorry, wrong slide. Another nice thing that we did with this device was to also control the sign on top of the building. And now we know how much CO2 are we emitting thanks to this marketing. But at some point, we got also to the details of, just trying to integrate, trying to get to this goal to be able to say, okay, it costs exactly this much CO2 to manufacture a device, that we started thinking, should we use, the laser marker, or should we use, let's say, silk printing? And started benchmarking and, frankly, losing our time with this. So what instead we did, which was logical, is we invested into solar panels of the manufacturing, and now at least part of the energy used is renewable. So at MClimate, we kind of have a clearer conscience now. But in the future, of course, we want to get into the even such details. And the year, the title, the title of this year's the Things conference is about TCO, total cost of ownership. And I find it hard to calculate in euro, but kind of trying to calculate it in CO2, it's even crazier. But it would include, obviously, the hardware production, which is your own production, plus the production of all the components that you're using. It would include, a cost of installation. And an important point here is that just 200 kilometers with a car, it's almost 40 kilograms of CO2 emitted. So I think what's very important is the cost of service visits. We have partners here, not sure if they're in the room, but we're talking about Netherlands. And they're like, well, if we have to go and install a sensor, it costs about €1,000, simply because the labor cost here is very high. But we have other cases, like in Finland, where you have to travel a long distance to go and service a customer. So, and perhaps there are many other things that we can, account in this calculation of total cost of ownership in terms of CO2. But the truth is that right now, that's all unknown, and it's all guessing in the dark, and that makes it hard. But as we had a discussion on the roundtable this morning, things are slowly progressing, and things, we will be able to quantify each part, or even this remote, how much does it cost to produce in terms of CO2, with certain amount of certainty. And I think that the whole CO2 calculation, I don't know how many of you have been asked how much CO2 have you wasted to manufacture your product? But we've been asked this a lot, and I think it's very use case specific, because nobody would ask this question, nobody would come up with this question for a simple, people counter. But when we talk about heating and cooling optimization, then it's always a question, okay, you're saving this much, but how much are you, how much are you emitting? Are you actually helping the environment or not? And the conclusion here is that every building, on average in the EU, emits tens of tons of CO2 every year from operating heating and cooling and other stuff. But even if you're able to save a very small percentage of this, here we're not only talking about ROI of the project itself, we're also bringing the topic of ROI of the CO2. Is it net positive for the environment or not? But my question is, and I'm trying to be critical here. Should you be caring as a manufacturer or a solution provider offering some type of devices about life cycle assessment, environmental product declaration, the CO2 equivalence, etc.? And I think the fact is that LoRaWAN, although I don't know how many, 1,000 people are here today, and it's growing, and we see more and more projects, and now Semtex says, X amount of millions of chips have been sold. I think given the fact that still in Europe there is a huge import of products that are not paying any type of taxes, no battery tax, no packaging tax, no WEEE tax. This is the electronic waste tax. From Temu and AliExpress, I think the figure was 2 billion packages have been sent to Europe under the custom declaration threshold. So, they're practically untraceable. And should we care, with a few, maybe millions of devices that we do as a whole ecosystem? And I think the answer is, frankly, no. I started the talk, and Ben introduced me how I'm going to say, if you change this component in your device, you're going to minimize the CO2 impact. The truth is, maybe you should not care about this. And I think you should care mostly about how do you create a working solution and how do you make it scalable. But if you want to embark on this journey, the ISO 14000 family, it's a great start. It explains about environmental product declaration. It explains about life cycle assessment. And at some point, you're going to start receiving those questions from your partners. And there is, an obligation. I think 2027, there's going to be the obligation to publish electronic dossier of all the products that are manufactured here. And this is going to come. But my message to you is don't get bogged down in the details as we did at MClimate. Trying to see if laser marking or silk printing is more eco-friendly. But instead, get this on the agenda, integrate the system, start setting goals and following the system. Honestly, it is somewhat guiding you. But keep in mind it's not an exact science, and you might have to revisit things later. But all we know, I have one message to you. If you want to be successful, and no matter the CO2 cost, I think the most important thing about projects and about not really letting down the whole ecosystem of with failed projects, this is if manufacturers invested more into reliability and quality. And I think this is often overlooked. It's very easy to get the POC going. It's really hard to make it so that you can produce a few million devices a year and they are all working well. But you as a company, I think first and foremost, you should try to create a very high quality product. And due to the high installation costs, both in terms of monetary, but also CO2 footprint, try to do devices or solutions that are really install and forget. Because each time you got to visit somewhere, it's a pain if you have to do it. I think is, cheap hardware sometimes means very expensive projects and maybe failed projects and maybe a failed relationship with, a company. So, as I said, high quality hardware and very reliable. Make sure the batteries are lasting as long as possible. I think that's a given. But also invest into things like the FOTA, firmware upgrades over the air, because this vastly helps, make a future-proof solution. Something that we also did at MClimate this first half of the year is we invested a lot of resources into so-called reliability testing. Accelerated live testing, highly accelerated stress testing, etc. are they're methods essentially to simulate devices, not devices, but real environment for a smaller amount of time. So you can, it's really device specific, but there is a way how you can simulate 10 years into a month. And now we have simulated for most of the devices, not all, but we have simulated over 25 years of working without faults, which is key, because I think that even with if I get you back to the point with solar, then the question is, okay, now I'm with solar, then how long is this device going to work? So I think manufacturers should be, more focused on not just a new device or a new vertical that you want to unlock or whatever. I think manufacturers in the LoRaWAN ecosystem should really be focused on reliability. The fact that your devices are not going to just fail in real environment. And there are ways, talk to your technical universities, professors, how to do it, but just testing limits of devices, documenting everything, gathering this knowledge in one place, it's really important for the reliability of the devices. And I think the timer started a little bit late, so We have a plan at MClimate. We want to do a lot of things related with sustainability. And this has been at the core of the company itself, at the core of the philosophy. That's why we're mostly into actuators, which is super challenging, to be honest with you. But we believe that through actuators, you can potentially save more, or you can save it quickly. So we have a plan, but my message to you, another one, the last one, I promise, is don't be afraid to change your plans. Don't be afraid. Don't be worried. This is okay. If you decide that you want to go on the sustainability track, you want to do certificate ISO 4001 and other, things take time. And my message again would be, that's nice, but that's an add-on to the business. It's not the real value added of the business. And I think the reality is going to become so that we have to create life cycle assessment. We have to create EPDs, and that's going to be important. But I think more important is, instead of minimizing CO2 impact through component selection, is to minimize CO2 impact through very high quality and reliable hardware. That's it from me. Thank you.